Hello and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. For today's preview, as France take on Argentina in the final game on Saturday in the Autumn Nations Series. Obviously, one game on Sunday with Scotland taking on Australia, but a blockbuster day will conclude with France taking on Argentina. With France probably having one of the most exciting experiments of this year, really, within the lineup that they have named. And a little bit more about that later. But for Argentina, a couple of big names. Hasn't really been a lot of consistency with the Argentinian selections this year. I wouldn't quite say that Mario Desma's kind of settled on a standard 15, which he then sort of tweaks. Often quite a few changes in around that Argentina side. And we've seen glimpses of Argentina that we've sort of come to know. And hopefully, a bit of time away from sort of after the Rugby Championship, a bit of time off will hopefully mean that the Argentina's side can come back in and really sort of get going, because we haven't quite seen the Los Pumas that we've come to know them as, in terms of being a very difficult side to break down, very spirited. We've seen sort of aspects and we've seen sort of periods, I suppose, during sort of like the Rugby Championship, the 10-15 minute period, we sort of see some really nice rugby, but they haven't quite put together that big performance just yet. And what better way sort of to try and get back to sort of that sort of standard is in an outgoing tour where you're playing in Europe. It will be difficult. I think this French side are genuine contenders for the Rugby World Cup 2023. I think that they've got a lot of depth, as we'll sort of see with the amount of talent, and even with a couple of players missing, I think that they've got a lot of match winners, a lot of game changers within the side. But before we look at the sides, please do smash like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. We'll start with the French side, which is going to be captained by Antoine Dupont in the absence of Charles Louvain. And it's a big call, but I genuinely think that Antoine Dupont might be the most naturally talented rugby player I've ever watched. I don't think I've ever seen someone who walks onto a rugby field and just makes the game look as easy as he does. And I know he's still very young and it's a massive call to make, but he's a very special player at the end of the day. Just absolutely love watching him play rugby. As I said, he can do everything, really. Everything that you want from a scrum half and more, he's got it. And to have that sort of composure and the ability that he does, 25 next year is sort of coming into his peak years, which is quite a scary prospect. But he's just a phenomenally talented player. But in terms of the French side, we didn't quite see a sort of a first-string French side during the mid-year series when they took on Australia. They were missing quite a lot of players. All the players that were involved in the top 14 finals. So there was no Dupont, there was no NTAMACK. There were quite a lot of players missing there. But a lot of these players are back. So we're looking at the front row. Very, very strong front row for France. Cyril Bailly, Julien Marchand, and Mohamed Hawass will be packing down in the front. There is a debut for Thibaut Verment in the second row. He joins Paul Willems, South African-born lock there. So it's a lot of bulk in that second row. Any second row which has Paul Willems in it has a lot of weight to throw around. The loose trio, no Charles Olivan, obviously. So we will be Cameron Waukee, Francois Cross, and Anthony Gelange. Anthony Gelange, big fan of him, very nice player. And you've got something like Craig Aldred coming off the bench. So a lot of depth in this French squad at the moment. And then Dupont will be partnering Mathieu Jalbert, who will be at number 10. Romain NTAMACK will be starting at inside centre. So we talk about having, sort of two playmakers, a 10-12 combination. A lot of people for South Africa, for example, saying they would like to see Alton Jantjies and Andre Pollard get a go. We've also seen in the past, more recently England, with George Ford, Owen Farrell, a lot of people calling for a Marcus Smith, Owen Farrell sort of combination. But France are going to try it with Jalbert and NTAMACK, which is a very exciting prospect because, I think NTAMACK, another one who is just insanely talented. But when he was injured, Mathieu Jalbert was one of the better players in the Six Nations. So incredible depth at number 10. Again, something like NTAMACK, he's 22 years old, and he just looks so at home at the level that is Test match rugby. And if those two aren't enough, you've got somebody like Gael Fickou at outside centre who just brings it all together. So, Jalbert, NTAMACK, both 22-year-old players, incredibly talented flower halves, both in the same field at the same time. It's a very exciting prospect, isn't it? The two wings will be Gabin Vieira and Damien Penaud, and then Malvin Jaminet will be at full back for this weekend. Off the bench for the French, Peter Mavaka, Jean-Baptiste Gros, Demba Bamba, and then we've got Rome, Romain Tuafarano, Gregory Aldred, Seko Makalau, Maxime Lucy, and Jonathan Dainty. So obviously, I suppose, with having that two front rows starting. They have gone with a 6-2 split because you can, because you've got a lot of versatility, I suppose, in that starting lineup. So that is how the French side do line up. Their opponents, the Argentinians, Mario Ledesma has named the following side: the literally ever-present Julian Montoya will, of course, captain the side. He's been a stalwart at hooker for many years without being able to sort of get that starting berth, and he's now very, very comfortably the number one hooker, the captain of the side, and just a very consistent performer. On either side of him, backing down will be Thomas Gallo and Francisco Gomez Cordella. In the second row, Thomas Lamavini and Guido Petti, which is quite a consistent selection. Those two have been sort of relatively consistent for Ledesma. Pablo Matera is back on the side. Obviously, he missed the end of the Rugby Championship because of the breaking sort of the COVID restrictions rules, but he is back on the side, and he's next to Marcus Kramer and Facundo Iza as the loose trio. Gonzalo Bertrand, who's been sort of in the preferred scrum half, is on the bench, which means that Thomas Kobedi comes in. Santiago Carreras continues in the number 10 jersey. Interesting to see that they are sticking with him. He is next to Mateo Carreras at wing and Dalgar Bautista on the other wing. The centre pairing will be Geronimo de la Fuente and Mateus Moroni. And then you've got Emiliano Boffelli at full back. So plenty of pace around those outside backs. And I think it will be quite an open game. France like an open game. I think Argentina wouldn't. This backline, I think, will enjoy an open game. Obviously, the forwards are far more direct and confrontational than the likes of Lavanini and Kramer, Matera, Montoya, very confrontational players. And then off the bench for Las Pumas, we've got Facundo Bush, Rodrigo Martinez, Santiago Medrano, Lucas Paulos, Jean-Martin Gonzalez, Gonzalo Bertrand, Nicolas Sanchez, and Lucio Cinti. So some nice players come off the bench. Nicolas Sanchez, we haven't quite seen the best of him in an Argentina jersey this year. So hopefully we'll be able to see a bit more from the fly half who, has become sort of world-renowned and such a talented player on his day. Fantastic goal kicker, probably one of the best in the business. But we haven't quite seen exactly what he can bring to this international side this year. At least. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Obviously, I think, France do go into the side as favourites, but I do think that when Argentina pitch up, and they do tend to have these games where they can just pitch up and put in a world-class performance, they can definitely try and go toe-to-toe with the French, who are missing a couple of players. So interesting to sort of see what will happen this weekend. Get your score predictions down in the comments below. Smash like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. My name is Steven. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll chat to you soon.